18.
Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The rupee sinks to a new low against the US dollar. $1 is now worth nearly 82 rupees. The Indian currency has depreciated 3% just this month. The stock markets decline for the sixth straight day. The Nifty falls below 17,000. The Sensex hits the lowest level in 2 months. Bank stocks get battered yet again. The Union Cabinet approves the extension of the free food grain scheme launched at the start of the pandemic by 3 months. Sources say the Finance Ministry opposed the extension as it has fiscal implications of more than 44,000 crore rupees. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar flags the delay faced by Indian professionals in getting the U.S. visa at a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. The U.S. India Business Council says the delays are disruptive for business, urges the Biden administration to act. The U.S. market regulator says Oracle's India unit used slush funds to bribe officials for business. This is the second time Oracle is facing bribery charges in India. The company says the conduct is contrary to their core values, promises to take appropriate action if such behavior is identified. Indus Towers asks Vodafone Idea to pay its dues immediately, warns of discontinuation of tower services. The Indus Towers board has also sought regular payment from Vodafone Idea henceforth. Russia claims resounding victories in referendums held in occupied provinces of eastern Ukraine, setting the stage for annexation. The US and the West call the results of the vote a sham. European nations also claim sabotage of the likely reasons behind leaks in the Russian gas pipelines. The Union government bans the Popular Front of India and its associates under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The Home Ministry accuses the organisation of terror-related activities, calls them a major threat to internal security. A strong start to the festive season sales across online platforms. Data from Red Seer shows more than 50 million shoppers placed orders online for goods worth 24,000 crore rupees. All of that and more coming up for you, but let's start with the Indian rupee, which continues to face selling pressure. The rupee plunging to a new low today. $1 is now worth almost 82 rupees. All currencies are under pressure as investors flock to the US dollar since the US Federal Reserve started to hike interest rates. The rupee has depreciated 3% against the dollar in this month, and it has weakened by 9% since the start of the year. Lata joins us now with the money market action. Lata, that's the dollar rupee 81.94. What options does the Reserve Bank have to utilize, and whether it should at this point in time or not?
It's actually a double whammy now for Asian currencies. It's not anymore talking only about US yields. We have to talk about China. The Chinese currency saw a much lower fixing today. You know, Chinese currency doesn't, it's not entirely market determined. The PBOC determines a midpoint and allows the currency to float around it. The new midpoint, which everyone thought would come closer to 7.16 per dollar, which was yesterday's close, came in at 7.22, which was quite a surprise. They actually allowed or enforced a depreciation. And so all Asian currencies are showing that impact. And of course, the rupee was no exception. Right from the word go, we started off at 81.90. What dealers tell us is that there is a persistent dollar offering, which they are guessing is from the Reserve Bank. And they are guessing that because of this offer, 81.94 is not getting crossed. Also, the rupee looks like a relative outperformer because at 81.94, it is about 0.3, 0.4 lower than previous close. The Korean won is 1.25% lower than yesterday's close. The Chinese yuan itself is down 0.75 versus yesterday's close. So clearly this is, a worldwide phenomenon. And just to add, US yields overnight crossed 4%, the 10-year that is, which is a fresh 13-year high. And the US data came very robust. Consumer confidence as well as new home sales. New home sales were 28% higher than June, the July numbers, whereas they were actually expected to fall by about 0.05. So, strong noises coming from Fed governors who spoke like Bullard and Evans as well. And therefore, the market now is not looking like there is any immediate peaking off of the dollar or bottoming out of the currency. At least for the moment, there's more to go.
All right, Lata, many thanks for joining us. And as Lata was pointing out, even as the rupee has hit a new low for the 5th straight day, former RBI Governor Subbarao believes the current macroeconomic situation is not as bad as 2013 when he was in charge of the central bank. Speaking with Lata, Subbarao said that India does not need any special schemes to attract NRI deposits just yet. However, he also cautioned that the twin deficits, that's fiscal deficit and the current account deficit, do make India vulnerable to global shocks. Take a look.
In 2013, the rupee was under pressure. There was a lot of pent-up exchange rate pressure in the rupee. It was overvalued, suddenly bled. This time, I think the rupee is tracking fundamentals more or less. Like you said, this year, the current account deficit is expected to be 3 or 3.5% of GDP. It is going to persist, and it is going to come on top of fiscal deficits, which are high, not just the central government, but both the center and states put together. Fiscal deficits are still, I wouldn't say scarily high, but certainly quite high. That coupled with our current account deficit of over 3% of GDP certainly puts us in the vulnerable zone.
And you can catch that conversation with the former RBI Governor D. Subbarao at 5:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. Moving now to the market action, also under pressure today, declining for the 6th straight session. The Sensex lost over 500 points and it has now hit the lowest level that we've seen in 2 months. The Nifty falling below 17,000 after losing over 100 points. Bank stocks got battered in trade again. Mid-caps managed to relatively outperform the blue chips, but the index still ended in the red. Anuj joins us now to wrap up the day's market action for us. Anuj, the selling pressure continues.
Well, the market's been in some kind of a free fall. It didn't look like that up until 2 p.m., but the last hour has been particularly brutal for our markets for last few days. And today as well, there was a sharp move. In fact, from the highs now, the market has swiftly corrected big. In fact, the market leading index, the Bank Nifty, is now a good 10% of its recent all-time high. And the Indian market is now playing a fast catch-up with the global market after outperforming the global market in all the decline. A lot of heavyweights were under pressure, ITC, Reliance and HDFC, and the real big pressure came from the big banks, Axis, SBI and HDFC Bank. Metals as well under pressure, so names like Hindalco, JSW Steel and Tata Steel. This clearly is the global dollar trade which is playing out in the commodity market. And the level of risk off can be gauged by the stocks which were gaining today. And there were some, Asian Paints, Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, even Hindustan Unilever. So basically pharma and FMCG are now your defensive bets in this environment. What next for the market? Well, technically the market's broken down. It's below its 200-day moving average and very close to 200-day exponential moving average. That also looks like at 16,800 under threat. But the bigger point for the market is what's happening with the dollar index and the USD INR. For the market to stabilize, you need stability in the currency market. Till that happens, the market will be vulnerable for the kind of day that we had today.
Anuj, many thanks for joining us. Yes, the market continues to be vulnerable to global volatility and pressure. Now, the International Monetary Fund has strongly criticised the UK government's tax cut plans, its biggest in the last 50 years. The IMF has warned that it could exacerbate the cost of living crisis. The IMF's criticism comes after the new Chancellor to the Exchequer laid out tax cut plans targeting mainly the rich households and corporates. The British pound is also at a record low against the dollar. Remember, the IMF's managing director, in her conversation with me just a few days ago, had warned that fiscal space is constrained and limited, and hence governments must utilize the fiscal space appropriately and only go in for targeted benefits and not expansionary fiscal policies. And that's what the IMF. Another 3 months, it was set to expire on the 30th of September. CNBC-TV18 learns that even though the cabinet has given the go-ahead, the finance ministry had in writing opposed the extension. They were concerned about the fiscal implications to the tune of over 44,000 crore rupees. The cabinet has cleared the extension anyway. Timsy Jaipuria joins us now with the latest. Timsy, take us through the objections that the finance ministry raised while shooting down the idea of extending the free food scheme, which anyway the cabinet has now decided to go ahead with. It is, of course, a political call.
Well, even as Union Cabinet today has decided to give a 3-month extension to the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, or the free ration scheme, we are given to understand from sources that when it comes to the stakeholders of the scheme, or to be precise, the Finance Ministry, they seem to have had a different view. Rather, the Finance Ministry, in a communication to Food Department last week, had advised to terminate the scheme. The advice was backed with warnings that the scheme will have adverse fiscal implications, as the implications are to the tune of 44,762 crores, and there are fiscal pressures due to Russia-Ukraine war, effect on fuel prices, and the rise in other subsidies. The other reasons that were cited by the Finance Ministry was that the pandemic has abated considerably, distress for which relief was given doesn't appear to be prevalent, and a continuation of the scheme over a long period of time may give an impression of its being a permanent or an indefinite continuation, and hence it might be difficult for the government to stop the scheme later on. This, coupled with other concerns of a possibility that there may not be adequate food grains to continue the scheme indefinitely given the global environment, were also cited. And if not, at least government should consider a reduction in quantities of the distribution, thus clearly pointing out that the political call prevailed over the view of Finance Ministry when it comes to the extension given to the scheme.
Timsy, many thanks for joining us. Well, that was the Finance Ministry's objections, but the political call has been taken to extend the scheme for 3 months nevertheless. The Union Cabinet has also cleared a 4% hike in the dearness allowance for central government employees ahead of the festive season. The announcement will benefit 48 lakh employees and 67 lakh pensioners. The move is likely to have an impact of 12,800 crore rupees on the exchequer this financial year. The big corporate story today, Indus Towers has warned Vodafone Idea of service closure if the company does not clear its mounting dues. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the Indus Towers board flagged its concerns and is seeking regular payment of dues from Vodafone Idea. Torrent Pharma has acquired Chennai-based Curatio Healthcare for 2,000 crore rupees. Shares of the company tumbled in trade as many brokerages believe the company has paid a hefty price for the deal, which will take years to turn accretive. The deal will give Torrent Pharma a strong foothold in the cosmetic dermatology market, taking the company into the top 10. The Delhi High Court has granted statutory bail to former NSE CEO Chitra Ramakrishna and former Chief Operating Officer Anand Subramanian. The bail is over a money laundering case related to the alleged illegal phone tapping and snooping of NSE employees. The judge ruled that he was granting statutory bail as the investigation is not completed within a specified period of time while the accused is in judicial custody. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has flagged huge challenges that Indian professionals face in being able to get a visa in the U.S. Following a meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Jaishankar said that both sides agree that impediments to mobility of talent must be addressed.
On mobility, specifically visas, this is particularly crucial given its centrality to education, business, technology, and family reunions. There have been some challenges of late, and I flag it to Secretary Blinken and his team, and I have every confidence that they will look at some of these problems seriously and positively.
Well, that is the External Affairs Minister, Parikshit Luthra, standing by with more details. Parikshit, how long are these delays? What kind of impact is it having on businesses? And more importantly, what are we hearing from both sides on being able to address this issue?
Well, U.S. and Indian companies have flagged chronic processing delays, which are very disruptive for American companies. That's the word coming in from U.S. India Business Council. The U.S. IBC told CNBC-TV18 that recent measures taken by the U.S. State Department to reduce waiting times are not enough, and they're urging the U.S. Congress and the Biden administration to do more to address consular delays. When asked about appointments stretching all the way to 2024, the U.S. Embassy said they're gradually ramping up capacity to reduce these long waiting periods. They said that the State Department has a plan to aggressively staff the U.S. mission in India to their highest levels ever. The embassy also said they anticipate all positions to be fully staffed by the summer of 2023. The U.S. mission in India is upgrading its consular facilities and also opening up a new center in Hyderabad. They're also expanding interview waiver authority to previously issued applicants. The backlog, they say, is because of restrictions on consular services during the pandemic, despite which they have issued a record 82,000 student visas between June to August this year. The embassy also told CNBC-TV18 that it has processed 500,000 applications from workers, students, tourists, and crew members as well. The U.S. Secretary of State has said the U.S. government is very focused on resolving these issues and explained the self-financing nature of U.S. visa facilities. Sources have explained that proceeds from visa fees are used for staffing and salaries of visa officers, and the staffing was impacted due to COVID lockdowns in the last 2 years. This is exactly what the U.S. State Department is trying to address now with additional resources. Currently, all categories are seeing long wait times, while Indian citizens with valid H-1B visas can travel from US to India and back. Those cases where visas have expired or are due to expire are being advised not to travel to India because of the uncertain and long wait times.
Well, the hope certainly is that there will be some redressal of these grievances. Many thanks, Parikshit, for joining us. The U.S. market regulator has imposed a fine of $23 million on tech giant Oracle for using slush funds to bribe officials in UAE, Turkey and India between 2016 and 2019 to get business. According to the U.S. SEC's order, Oracle India's sales employees used, and I quote, an excessive discount scheme that pertained to a transaction with a transportation company whose majority owner is the Ministry of Railways. The employees working on the deal cited competition from other OEMs and allegedly said that the deal would be lost if a 70% discount was not provided on the software component of the deal. The discount approval was allegedly provided without getting documentary support. The order further stated that a total of approximately $330,000 was funneled to an entity with a reputation for paying officials, and another $62,000 was paid to an entity controlled by the sales employees responsible for the transaction. The company said the conduct is contrary to their core values and has promised to take appropriate action if such behavior is identified. We will take a break, but coming up next, e-commerce platforms have started the festive season on a strong footing. That and more when we return.